Okay, so looking at the final kind of part of this this tutorial, I've opened the character that we created within Illustrator based on a scan using the blob brush tool and the live paint bucket tool, and this is the layer that I was talking about. I'm showing you how to export. It is simply just the outline and block colour, and we're going to look at a similar kind of shading technique, just slightly different, using the brush tool and a variety of layers to provide some kind of tone and depth to the character. First thing I'm going to do is that when the image was exported from Illustrator, it's automatically just cropped the area, which just made it a wee bit tight around the edges. I'm just going to go to image and then canvas size and just increase that. So I'm nearly at 10 there. I'm just going to go to 12 and increase that up to 25, which just gives me a wee bit extra space to work with, and I'll crop at a later date if I wish. Okay. Now this is going to be my base layer, so what I'm going to do is just to err inside the caution, which you should always do, is just duplicate your original layer. Call this edit. And I'm just going to lock this original layer so that it's non-destructible, it can't be touched. Okay. So on the edit layer, what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at making a series of layers. Now zoom in on the image. It's just taking its time to just crisp it up. But nice clean vector image generated in Illustrator. How I tend to work if I'm using this technique is make a series of folders, and then within those folders I can have a series of layers for clothing, etc. So what I'm going to do is begin by creating a folder or a group, and this folder I'm going to call skin, right? So this is where I'm going to keep all my skin tone layers. Now remember that when you generate a new layer within Photoshop or even within Illustrator, it automatically generates it on top of the layer that you're sitting upon. So what I'm going to do is I'll be generating my new layers based on using this edit layer. Now I'm going to use the magic wand tool, and I should be able to, with my add to selection button checked up at the top here, I should be able to click on the full skin area and select all the other areas of skin within the image. Okay, and from that I'm going to generate a new layer. So this, you'll notice my selection is still hovering, but anything I paint is going to go onto this layer and not onto my edit layer. Before I do that, what I'm going to do is just grab this, move it up to the folder and let go, and you'll notice that it indents. And what that means is it's now collapsed underneath that folder, and it just makes things a lot tidier when you're organising your layers within Photoshop. Okay, so let's zoom in. Again, I'm going to go back to using the eyedropper tool, select the skin tone, and I'll select a slightly darker shade. Okay, so I'm going to name this my shade because it's a darker representation. Any shades, if you're generating a shade of colour, what you're doing is you're adding black to it to make it darker, and a tint would be adding white to it. Okay, so this is my shade layer. Select my brush. Again, I can use brackets to increase the size of my brush or decrease them. If you hold down Shift and either one of the brackets, what you're going to do is you'll be increasing the smoothness or the hardness of the edges. Sorry. So by holding down Shift and pressing the right bracket, you'll be increasing that. Holding Shift and pressing the left bracket, you'll decrease the feathered edge. Okay, it's entirely up to you though that you're going for, but when we were working within Illustrator, it was quite a kind of hard-edged image that we were painting with. So we're looking to maybe try and make it a bit softer. I'll show you what I mean. So if we just start painting, it seems to be crashing slightly here, but you start to see that come through, and I'll just try and imitate, I guess, the shading that I put in place. Now the great thing about organising your layers like this is what it allows you to do is go back and edit those layers in particular. So say I wanted to apply an adjustment layer, or say I wanted to decrease the opacity slightly. Okay, some people will tell you that their technique is decreasing the opacity of the brush as they're painting on, but I tend to prefer to just keep that 100%, because otherwise you keep going over and over and over, and you can see kind of discrepancies or a change in the level of opacity. I prefer to just control the full thing using the opacity on the layer. Okay, so I'm just applying a little bit of shading here. I can do the same down here for the arms, and because I've used that magic wand selection, it's keeping within the selection that I've made. You'll notice that's just a slightly bit harder. It's just because I've reduced the size of the brush, so it's, you're not seeing the kind of blurred effect coming through, or the feathered effect rather, by having the smoothness or hardness decreased right down to 0. So, before my computer crashes here, there's an indication of applying some shade. Now, we're done with the skin, so we can deselect that. Control D or select, deselect, and that's what we're looking at the moment. I can now go back to my edit layer and use the magic wand tool to select all the skin again. Remember, using my add to selection function within the magic wand tool, so I can make continuous selections. I'm going to make a new layer this time, and we'll call this highlights. Okay, and I'm going to move this above the shade layer, which indents again, keeps it in my skin group, my skin folder, and I can do the same thing, go back to skin tone, select the lighter colour that I'm looking for, use the brush on the highlights layer and simply just paint it doesn't seem to be handling this too well, but you'll notice there that I've generated that highlight, and I can continue to paint. Okay, and obviously I'll be more exact in where I want the lighting, but just for the purposes of this tutorial, I get to show you how we would lay that out. Now, once you're happy with, say, producing the highlights and the shades to your skin there, say we've deselected that, so I'll just Control D to deselect that, and we want to choose another part of the character. That's where we go back to the edit layer. Now you'll notice if I hide that group, I'm right back to where I started, okay, which again means that if there's any changes you want to make within that folder with each of the layers, then you can do that without affecting the edit. You always have that original there, okay. So any other parts of the body would just be a case of making new folders again. So we could, this might be the t-shirt, and I'm maybe being a wee bit kind of too particular here about having folders for each item of clothing, but you may want to just keep it to skin, clothes, hair, for example. It depends on how detailed you want the image to be. Back to my edit layer, because that's how I'm going to be able to select the colour. You want to make sure that you're always going back to that layer, and then from there I can create my new layer, and again grab that new layer to indent it under the t-shirt. Let's give it a shade, use the eyedropper tool, it's white, I guess, it's not going to pick anything up. I'll use a slight shade of grey, too dark, but you see, and I'll just simply paint onto the image. Catch up. Okay, so you can start to see that come through, and that's just the process that I would use to build that up, and you'll see the final example on Moodle of the technique that I've used with the this technique in Photoshop using layers and the brush